U.S. military operations in the Middle East. The U.S. controls about 750 bases in at least 80 countries worldwide and spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. In the early morning hours of August 31st, the last American soldiers lifted off from Kabul airport, officially ending the 20-year war in Afghanistan, the longest in U.S. history. At its peak in 2011, the U.S. had approximately 100,000 troops across at least 10 military bases from Bagram to Kandahar. In total, more than 800,000 U.S. soldiers served in the war. Between 1.9 and 3 million U.S. service members have served in Afghanistan and Iraq since 2001, with over half of them deployed more than once. The largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East is the Udeid Air Base, located west of Doha, Qatar. Established in 1996, it hosts around 11,000 American and coalition service members. Covering an area of 24 hectares, 60 acres, the base accommodates almost 100 aircraft as well as drones. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. under President George W. Bush invaded Afghanistan following the 9/11 attacks. The coalition he led accused the ruling Taliban regime of harboring Osama bin Laden, the al-Qaeda leader who claimed responsibility for the attacks. An estimated 241,000 people have died as a direct result of the war since 2001, according to the Costs of War project at Brown University. In addition, hundreds of thousands more, mostly civilians, have died due to hunger, disease, and injury caused by the devastating war. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq after it accused longtime Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein of having weapons of mass destruction. None was found. At its peak in 2007, the U.S. had an estimated 170,000 troops in the country. Today, there are around 2,500 U.S. troops in the country as part of a security agreement with the Iraqi government. The period following the 9/11 attacks, and the declaration of war on both Afghanistan in 2001 and Iraq in 2003, saw a large spike in troops abroad. At least 800,000 Americans served in Afghanistan and more than 1.5 million in Iraq over the past 20 years. The human cost of the wars is estimated to have killed more than 900,000 people, mostly civilians. In 2020, the U.S. spent $778 billion on its military, the largest military spender in the world and more than the next 10 countries combined. China ranked second at $252 billion, followed by India at $73 billion, Russia at $62 billion and the UK at $59 billion. Over the past 20 years alone, the U.S. has spent $8 trillion on its so-called global war on terror, according to the Costs of War project at Brown University. The war in Afghanistan accounts for $2.3 trillion which, according to Brown University researchers, equals more than $300 million a day for 20 years. $2.1 trillion was spent on the wars in Iraq and Syria, and $355 billion was attributed to other wars. The rest of the money includes in excess of $1 billion in interest payments for the huge amounts of money borrowed to fund the wars as well as more than $2.2 billion in obligations for veterans' care over the next 30 years. This means that, even after the U.S. has left Afghanistan, it will continue to pay for the wars for years to come. Though an exact count is not known, the U.S. has several military bases in the Middle East that deploy more than 30,000 U.S. troops according to the Department of Defense. The most notable of all is the Udeid Air Base in Qatar, situated west of Doha. It is the largest military installation of the United States in the Middle East and critical for operations in the region. The air base hosts an estimated 11,000 troops and is well equipped with fighter jets. The U.S. Air Force deployed 5 fifth-generation F-22 Raptors developed by Lockheed Martin Corporation, NYSE, LMT, to the air base in 2020. The Udeid Air Base is also used by the U.S. to aid Qatar in bolstering its defense capabilities. The Boeing company in 2020 got a $657.2 million deal from the Qataris to provide sparing and logistics support for the Qatari Air Force's fleet of F-15 aircraft. Moreover, formerly Raytheon Technologies Corporation, NYSE, RTX, now RTX Corporation received a $77 million contract in the same year to upgrade Qatar's Air Operations Center by 2025. Work on both contracts was and is being carried out at the Udeid Air Base. The recent U.S. military moves related to the Israel-Gaza conflict have raised questions about the American mission. The 2,200 Marines from the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit are aboard 3 U.S. Navy ships as part of their regular deployment to the Middle East. Those 3 ships sailed away from the U.S. together as an amphibious-ready group but then they split up as needed. That's why two of the ships, the USS Bataan and USS Carter Hall, were in the Arabian Sea Tuesday after having left the Persian Gulf earlier this week. The third ship, the USS Mesa Verde, is in the Mediterranean only because it had to undergo repairs in Spain, left port this week with about 650 Marines and sailors aboard and is moving eastward in the Mediterranean. But it has not been given orders to head to the eastern Mediterranean as was done with the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, but it will be available if that order is given. There has been no decision to send these Marines or ships close to Israel, but on Tuesday the Pentagon confirmed that they are being moved into positions where they could be close by if an order is given on short notice. A U.S. official said that no orders have been given but that the USS Bataan and USS Carter Hall will head towards the Red Sea and the USS Mesa Verde will remain in the Mediterranean. The USS Bataan looks like an aircraft carrier and carries a mix of helicopters, vertical takeoff Ospreys, and Harrier jets. Those aircraft could be used to rescue people on short notice. The USS Mesa Verde and USS Carter Hall carry water landing craft and ground vehicles. U.S. troops shot down 2 drones targeting American forces in southern Syria on Monday, the latest in a string of drone attacks targeting American bases and facilities in the Middle East as officials warn of a significant threat of escalation in the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Last week, 2 drones targeted Al-Tanf in Syria. A drone targeted Al-Harar Air Base, formerly Bashar Air Base, in northern Iraq. 2 drones targeted Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq, and rockets targeted U.S. and coalition forces near Baghdad's international airport. The attack marked at least the 5th drone or rocket attack on U.S. forces in the Middle East in a week, which the Pentagon has described as an uptick. Some of the attacks resulted in minor injuries and damage. There is a significant threat of escalation throughout the region, and that would include towards U.S. forces.